Hey guys, King of Charmanders here. Alright, so today we are analyzing Machamp for Ultra Premier. Now, I'm not going to go too deep into Machamp as far as like statistics and everything goes. I'm just going to run through it really quickly, just things you might encounter, etc. So for Machamp, it's obviously a great and powerful attacker. It has a super high attack, high stamina, and defense. And that's the reason why the Shadow version is still pretty dang good, because it's highest with the high stamina, its defense, that low defense you get for that extra attack, it makes it really powerful. So for Ultra Premier, the thing you have to worry about Ultra Premier is for Charmers, mainly Togekiss is why it's weak to Fairy. And for flying types such as Mandibuzz, you have Skarmories, etc. You also have Psychic types where Confusion's a little more heavier in Ultra Premier, like Gallade, Exeggutor, etc. Now for resistances, you can see Excavaliers, so like X-Scissor or like from Scizor. Darks like Umbreon's probably your best bet in Ultra Premier if you happen to see one. Umbreon, Obstagoon, and rock types like Crustle, so things that throw rocks at you. So there's like, I would say you see more of your weaknesses than resistances. So for Ultra Premier, it's really interesting to see how Machamp really performs in Ultra Premier. Alright, here's the Peepo.com rankings for Ultra Premier. As you see here, the preferred moveset is actually Rock Slide and Cross Chop. Machamp is a pretty good staple in Ultra Premier, and it's extremely powerful, especially, well, both versions do well. It's just, as you see here, the preferred moveset is the regular one. Best used in the lead, because if you see something like Togekiss or Gallade, you can pivot out of it, or like Venusaur, like I said, you could pivot out of it and get out of there. But generally, if you win a lead, it's really strong because of Rock Slide. Rock Slide gives you that coverage. This is where Payback is kind of interesting, where you have a lot more targets for Rock Slide in Ultra Premier versus Open Ultra. So that's why this moveset is far more effective, just because you have a lot more targets for Rock Slide. As I mentioned before, Machamp is okay in all positions. You don't want to switch into a negative matchup, obviously, but in the lead, it gives you the ability to pivot out, and if you get a positive matchup with it, as you see, your ratings are very powerful. Alright, as I always say, here's the Matrix, and if you'd like to donate to peepoke.com, please consider doing so. Now, I'm not going to be too fancy here. You already know from the glimpse of the Matrix, the reason I didn't climb through the rankings that much is because the Rock Slide Cross Chop version is better. This video is purely for science. At least this one. So, I'm going to tell you right now, and I'm not going to, the rating is not going to be that high. Machamp with Payback doesn't have a lot of use in Ultra Premier. Rock Slide gives you coverage against a lot of things. That's why Machamp ranks so high in Ultra Premier. But you know what? Let's just do it for science. As you see here, I have Machamp with Payback regular version. I have the Shadow version. I also have Rock Slide, so you can see the comparisons of how Rock Slide dominates versus Payback. And we're gonna run the 2 shield, as you see here. Got the Ultra Premier meta already. Hit battle. All right. So, as you see here, you're still able to generally beat everything as long as you have Cross Chop, so you're able to beat a lot of things. However, without Rock Slide, you can't beat Charizard in the 2 shield. And without Rock Slide, you can't beat Kingdra with regular Machamp in the 2 shield, as you see here. You'll still generally lose against what you lose against in Ultra Premier. It's just without Rock Slide, you lose some coverage, which is actually not that bad. As you see in the 2 shield, the only difference is really, you see the coverage with like Venusaur here? Yeah. You see Thunders with Venusaur. So Venusaur and Charizard, which are actually 2 popular picks. So with that being said, Shadow Champ with Rock Slide gives you a lot better of an answer. Now, obviously with the Venusaur, it's still bait dependent. You have to be able to like, you still have to be able to literally like double bait in a Rock Slide. But still, having a way out against the Venusaur and Charizard, which are 2 popular picks, where Payback does not give you that, is just a plus. So that's the 2 shield scenario. Generally, you'll beat what you'll beat, just because Cross Chop, like I said, like I mentioned in, I think, my Open Ultra video, a lot of times you'll just use Cross Chop because of the sheer damage and the amount of spam you could do with it. Because it only takes 5 counters for you to get to a Cross Chop. Now, in the 1 shield, let's see what happens in the 1 shield. In the 1 shield, with Rock Slide, you are able to cover Charizard, Dragonite, so 2 flyers, and as you see with Rockslide, you can still cover Alolan Muck. With the Shadow Champ with Payback, you can't do it with Alolan Muck because Alolan Muck doesn't wall you, but Payback doesn't do damage. It's resisted. Ironically. As you see, there is some merits to Payback. Okay, as you see here, in the One Shield, Payback can actually give you the Swampert matchup. But I think you have to bait, though. Like, yeah, you kind of have to bait, though. So as you see here, you're going to hit Cross Chop, and then you get Payback. So this is an interesting matchup. So in the One Shield, it can flip the One Shield versus Swampert with Hydro Cannon Earthquake. And against Sludge Wave version. Other than that, the Rock Slide Surgeon doesn't beat the Earthquake version, as you see here. You're just going to get outpaced and it just does too much damage. So this is not a comfortable matchup, but this is just something interesting Payback beats. So it wins the One Shield. But you'll win the One Shield, but that's pretty much it. That's like the only notable. And it's the regular Machamp too. It's not even the Shadow version. I can flip it. You'll lose with the Shadow version just because of the pacing and the damage that Swampert will do overall. Now we're going to hit the zeros. So, let's see. In the nuke scenario, what happens? So, in the zeros, is there anything that's different? Okay, so, in the zeros, you can actually beat Ampharos, which is actually a pretty popular pick. Well, not super popular. I would say I would say uncommon. I would say uncommon. As you see, Payback does allow you to nuke an Ampharos. Without Payback, though, you lose against Blaziken, you'll lose against Charizard. You can beat Dragonite just because... Well, this is the regular version, too. This is not the Shadow version. Most of the time, you will be using the Shadow version, so that's most of the time. Well, you could use the regular one, too. If you use the regular one, you can beat Dragonite. But as you see here, Rockslide just does so much more. With Rockslide, with the regular version, you're able to beat both versions of Dragonite. You can only beat one, because Shadow damage will destroy you. You beat Drifblim with either Rockslide and or Payback. So Payback or Rockslide allows you to cover it. Now with Shadow Champ, it doesn't happen that way because with Shadow Champ, you need a little bit of energy advantage because then Drifblim's just gonna kill you. That's just the problem. You just don't have that little bit of bulk you need to be able to squeeze out the matchup. As you see, Shadow Champ with Payback can also take out Kingdra. So there's some in the closer. There's actually some interesting. So in the closer, it's kind of interesting. Now, obviously, with the mirror match, the only way you're going to win is if whoever has energy lead or whoever wins CMP. That's just what for the mirror match itself. Let's see if there's anything else. Let's see. With Payback, with Shadow Champ, you can actually beat Poliwrath. So in the closer, it actually has some play. Yeah, in the closer, Payback Machamp actually has some play versus the Rockslide version. But as you see here, the Rockslide version will win anyways. Well, the Shadow version wins anyways. So, there's a lot of things you can beat that you don't need. You can beat a Slowbro, but you have to make sure that you don't have any chip damage, because you have to land a Payback on Slowbro. Let's see. You can beat Swampert with Payback, if it's the Shadow one. So you could... Well, this is Swampert with Sludge Wave. If it has Earthquake, it's probably just going to Earthquake you, and that's GG's. And you beat Umbreon, of course, and Venus. The big problem here is Togekiss. Whether you have Poké... Like, do you see the ratings are much worse when you have Payback versus when you have Rockslide. And that's generally most of it. In the closer, there's some interesting matchups, but other than that, in every other scenario, Rockslide's just better. Now, if you're in the 1-0s, let's see, is there anything that you beat that nothing else? So in the 1-0s, you can actually cover Gallade, and you can cover Exeggutor, as you see with Payback. You can't do that with regular Machamp, so in the 1-0s. So you can cover your Psychic types, you can also cover, yeah, you can cover the Psychic types in the 1-0s. However, I wouldn't be too comfortable about that just because the damage you can... Just because of damage, because Machamp takes a ton of damage from Confusion. So it's an uncomfortable matchup anyways. So it looks like without Rockslide, in the 1-0s, it looks like Payback does cover like your weaknesses. But generally, you still lose... Like, yeah, you'll still lose what you lose against. Shadow Champ can still cover Venusaur, so that's a good part. So it's actually good in the 1-0 situation. The 2-0s, let's see, in the 2-0s, let's see, you still beat the Psychic, you still lose against Charmers, but you could still beat the Psychic types. Regular Champ can, Shadow Champ, unless it has Energy Lead, it cannot, just because, like I mentioned, the Confusion damage is just so much. You can beat Slowbro, and that's basically it. Where Payback comes interest, Payback comes clutch is basically in the no shield scenario, but it's a lot to ask for. If your opponent has a shield, so if you have energy advantage, you will lose those matchups. So you'll lose against Gallade, you'll lose against Slowbro. And Rock Slide allows you to cover basically both versions of Dragonite, etc. So Rock Slide generally just has more coverage overall versus anything else. Now, as you see here, Payback allows you to somehow beat Toxicroak. Well, you just actually, I think you just cross chop it down. So I think with Toxicroak, you just straight cross chop. You're still gonna lose against Charmers though, regardless. So Payback in the 2-to-1s is kind of interesting, but as you see here, Rock Slide just does more. It has more cover. It covers more matchups. Shadow Champ can cover Drifblim, but I think with this matchup, you have to be able to bait with Rock. So it's bait dependent. Because as you see here, you have to bait them with cross chop. If they call your Payback, you can't. I don't think you could go straight Payback. Yeah, you can't go straight Payback. So just because of Payback's energy. So it's really interesting. Ultra Premier, definitely Rock Slide looks like it takes the cake overall as far as like what you should use for Ultra Premier. Alright, so if I had to give Ultra Premier Machamp after all the data I've analyzed, I'd actually give it a 7 out of 10. It's actually not that bad. In the closer scenario, you can actually, like, cover things that are confusion users. As long as you have enough energy and, like, basically as long as you have enough energy, you can cover things like confusion and one-shot things like Slowbro. So you cover a weakness. The only issue is you're pretty screwed against Togekiss. So, I mean, in general, even if you don't have, like, enough damage to get to Rock Slide, etc., you're still screwed against Togekiss, against most scenarios. So, as you see here from the multi-battle, it's not that bad. If you go to the Rock Slide for Ultra Premier, 76%. Hit the Payback, here's what happens. 71. So it doesn't drop that much, because a lot of times you're just going to hit Cross Chop. Now, obviously, with Rock Slide, you do have a better matchup in the 2s, because you can cover Ice types, and you can cover Charizard and things like Dragonite. So you have that one-shot, but that threat and potential. Your opponent might not know that you have Rock Slide, so if they don't know, then you can kind of do like a fake out if you really want to. But here's where it gets interesting. So if you go to the zeros, 68%. And then if you go to Rock Slide, 64%. See, it's actually better in the Payback actually is better in the closer because it covers more matchups, and it's like relevant like confusion matchups in a sense. So there is a merit to run Rock. Would I do it? Not really. Not really. So if you go to the 1 to 0s, as you see here, Payback is actually better than Rock Slide is actually better than Rock Slide in certain scenarios, which is just pretty nuts because Payback allows you to do that little bit of chip damage to actually end your opponent. The only reason I don't recommend it is because the reason why it has such a low rating, in my opinion, is just because Togekiss and other Charmers are very prominent in Ultra Premier. Because of that, you don't really want to risk having to get... You're essentially going to get walled. So if you don't have Rock Slide and you have to dump a last-minute move on a Charmer, if you don't have Rock Slide, it's going to suck. And that's my pretty much justification, just because... Also, confusion users are very popular. Yes, you can still nuke them with with Payback. However, you have to get to the energy first. If Machamp is hurt enough, you're going to die anyways before you get to your move because Payback requires 60 energy. So you need either energy lead or shield to take an advantage. All in all, it's not a bad idea. Is it something that I would run? Probably not, just because Rock Slide covers more relevant matchups, especially if you're going to use Machamp in the lead. If I pretend I'm going to fire a Rock Slide against a Charizard, and they call the bait, and they figure out that you don't have Rock Slide, that's a pretty comfy Charizard. That's a pretty comfy Charizard. But that's basically my justification. Like I said, it's still pretty dang good. Not super bad, but there's too many charm patterns for me to really recommend it. If you guys enjoyed this video, please like and subscribe. Good luck on your Go Battle League sets, and I'll see you guys on the next video.